Grace's hand freezes on the ornate door handle of the Four Seasons ballroom. Her heart skips a beat. The room full of well-dressed guests blurs into the background as her eyes lock onto Ethan, the man she swore she'd never have to see again. His tuxedo, his perfectly composed smile, the billionaire groom poised at the altar, all of it means nothing in that moment, because Ethan's gaze has turned toward her and her son, Jalen. Jalen. His voice trembles. The room falls silent. Ethan's eyes shift between Grace and the child at her side. His face goes pale. She feels every breath in her chest become labored, every thought spinning in confusion. For 7 years, Grace buried the truth. But now, it's all out in the open, in front of everyone. Ethan's gaze intensifies. His voice cracks. "That's my son, isn't it?" Grace's pulse races. The past she's worked so hard to leave behind, Ethan's betrayal, his rejection, rises up and crashes into the present. She stands frozen, her hand still on the door, every nerve on fire as the tension around her intensifies. She can't take her eyes off Ethan, can't breathe. The whispers start almost immediately. In that instant, Grace realizes she's not just back in this world of wealth and pretense, she's the outsider now. But Jalen, the innocent boy at her side, is the reason she's here today. And though she's done everything to protect him from Ethan's legacy, that legacy is now staring him down. But why does he want to know about Jalen now? After all these years, why now? Grace feels the world holding its breath. She knows what's at stake, the truth, and she can't let it slip through her fingers, not when Jalen is right here. Jalen! Ethan's words pierce the air, and Grace feels something she hasn't felt in years, a long-buried rage, mixed with a twinge of fear. She doesn't need to ask herself what comes next. She knows. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I've missed you all so much. It's been a tough ride with some technical issues, but by God's grace, we're getting everything back on track. Thank you for sticking with me. Your support means everything. Before we begin, I want to say a little prayer over everyone watching, especially the women. To the women, may God strengthen you, comfort you, and fill your heart with peace and favor. To the men, may God guide you, bless your efforts, and give you wisdom in all you do. And may God's protection rest on every single one of you. Amen. If you're ready for today's story, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, my USA and UK family. I see you. And please watch till the end, because tomorrow I'll be dropping another story you wouldn't want to miss. Now, let's get into the story. Grace's hand drops from the door handle. She exhales slowly, glancing down at Jalen, who's looking up at her with confused eyes. The quiet tension of the moment feels like a storm in the room. Ethan's gaze doesn't leave them. He's no longer the man who left her behind. And yet, in this moment, the man standing before her is more real than ever. He is the man who abandoned her when everything changed. She looks into her son's eyes, feeling a wave of regret and anger building. 7 years ago, Grace was a girl young, hopeful, and deeply in love with Ethan. She trusted him when he promised a future together, a future she could never have dreamed of. But when she told him she was pregnant with Jalen, his promises turned to ash. He chose his family's legacy over her, and in a single night, everything changed. Ethan left, and Grace had to raise Jalen alone. Now, standing in this luxurious ballroom, Grace is no longer that girl. She is a woman who fought tooth and nail to get here. She had built a life, a hard, honest life, one that Ethan would never understand. The boy beside her was all she needed. Grace. Ethan's voice shakes, barely above a whisper. He takes a step forward, his gaze fixed on Jalen, still wide with disbelief. His eyes are searching, like he's trying to make sense of the impossible. For a moment, Grace doesn't speak. She can't. The memories are choking her, flooding her mind. She can hear her heart pounding in her chest, drowning out the soft whispers that swirl around them. The guests, once whispering excitedly about the wedding, now murmur with curiosity and judgment. Grace feels the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing on her. She's exposed. Ethan's lips part, his expression unraveling. "That's my son, isn't it?" The words hang in the air, sharp and stinging. Grace doesn't know how to respond. Part of her wants to scream at him, tell him everything he abandoned and destroyed in his quest for wealth and status. But another part, the quieter, hurt part, wants to cry, to ask him why he's come back now. Why does he want to know about Jalen now, after all these years? She takes a deep breath, steadying herself. No. She's done with crying. She's done with being the woman who let Ethan walk away. She's not that girl anymore. "Grace," Ethan repeats, as if he's trying to wake her from a trance. His eyes are wide with regret, a mixture of guilt and confusion clouding his features. But all she can see is the man who chose his family's legacy over her, who walked away without a second thought. Grace doesn't respond. Not yet. She can feel her anger rising. She can't let him see the depth of it, not here, not now, with everyone watching. But in her silence, Ethan is visibly struggling, his face twisted with confusion. He's the billionaire, the successful man who built an empire, but now, standing here, all she sees is a broken man trying to piece together a truth he doesn't want to face. Behind her, the room seems to shrink. Time stretches as Grace's eyes flicker toward the guests, watching her. They're waiting for something, some explanation. They're waiting for her to break, but she doesn't. She holds her ground, and just as she's about to speak, Jalen tugs at her hand. His small voice cuts through the thick tension like a knife. "Is he my daddy, Mama?" Grace's breath catches in her throat. Her stomach tightens. Her chest burns. In a split second, she feels the world crashing down around her. The question Jalen asks so innocently is the one Grace has spent 7 years trying to shield him from. He's too young to understand the weight of it, but for her the words cut through her like 1,000 shards of glass. Why didn't I tell him sooner? Why didn't I shield him from this pain? Jalen's big brown eyes are searching hers, his small face a picture of confusion. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know the truth. To him, Ethan is just another man in a tuxedo, a stranger in a sea of strangers. But to Grace, this is the man who left her, who rejected her, who told her she wasn't enough. And now, he's here. Ethan's face falls when he hears Jalen's words. His eyes flicker with an emotion Grace can't quite place. But for the first time, she sees him falter. The walls he's built around himself, the pristine image of the successful businessman, it all cracks. He's no longer the untouchable man she once knew. In this moment, Ethan is just a man faced with a past he buried and forgot, a past he never thought he'd have to confront. Grace forces a tight smile, masking the flood of emotions that threaten to tear her apart. She looks down at Jalen, his hand still clutching hers, and whispers, "No, baby, he's not your daddy." The words sting her own heart as they leave her lips. She doesn't want to tell them. She doesn't want to lie to Jalen. But how can she explain this moment to him? How could she ever explain a man who walked away, choosing wealth over his own blood? The room has gone silent. Grace can feel the pressure, the whispers, the stares of 100 strangers boring into her. She can hear her breath, shallow and quick, but she knows she can't let herself break. Not here. Not now. Ethan takes another hesitant step toward them, as if trying to close the distance. He reaches out as if to touch Jalen, but Grace steps back instinctively, her protective instincts flaring. She pulls Jalen closer, shielding him from Ethan, from the man who doesn't deserve to stand this close to them. "Grace, please," Ethan pleads, his voice trembling with something more than just guilt. His face is filled with desperation, as if he's finally seeing the consequences of his choices for the first time. "I didn't know. I never knew." Grace looks at him, her expression cold, but inside, something is breaking. She wants to scream, to let him have it, to remind him of the promises he shattered. But instead, she takes another breath, steadying herself, and simply says, "You didn't care, Ethan. Not then, not now." She feels Jalen tug at her hand again, looking up at her with wide, uncertain eyes. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know why this man is making his mother so upset, why she's acting so different than usual. Grace holds him tighter, blinking away the sudden tears that threaten to fall. "Mum, what's happening?" Jalen asks, his voice small. Her chest tightens. She can't let him see her break. She has to protect him from the past. She has to keep him safe. Grace forces a smile. "Nothing, baby. Just some things we need to leave behind." She looks back at Ethan, her voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside her. "You're too late." And with that, Grace turns her back to him, pulling Jalen gently by the hand, walking away from the man who once held her heart and now holds nothing but memories of a life she can't go back to. Grace can feel the weight of Ethan's eyes burning into her as she walks away. Every step feels like it takes a little bit more of her energy, like she's dragging the weight of the past along with her. The ballroom's chatter fades into a low hum, and all she can focus on is the pounding of her heart, the question that still lingers in the air. Why did he come back? Her breath catches as she pulls Jalen closer. The boy looks up at her, his confusion written all over his face. "Mom, what's going on?" Grace's throat tightens, but she forces a smile, trying to keep the tears at bay. She can't let him see how much this hurts, not in front of all these people. She can't let Ethan win by making her break down in front of the whole room. When they reach the edge of the crowd, Grace stops, breathing heavily. She can feel the eyes still on her, but for a brief second, she finally has a moment of clarity. She can't let Ethan take any more from her. He took everything the first time, everything. She turns around, facing him again. Ethan is still standing there, his jaw clenched, his eyes full of regret. But she knows that look, it's the same look he had when he walked away from her 7 years ago, when he chose his family's empire over their future. "You walked away, Ethan." The words leave her lips like they've been trapped inside her for years. The rage, the sadness, all of it bursts out in one breath. "You left me and Jalen." Ethan's face shifts, as if the words physically hit him. His hand rises as if he wants to reach for her but falters. He looks around at the guests, his face a mix of confusion and guilt, unsure if this is a nightmare he can wake up from. "I didn't know. I never knew." His voice cracks, but Grace doesn't care. The truth stings, but it's the only thing left that matters now. She takes a step closer, steadying herself. "I never contacted you, Ethan. You made your choice." The words taste bitter in her mouth, but they're true. She had tried at first to reach out, but each time it was clear he wasn't coming back. His empire, his family's approval meant more than she ever did. He chose them over her. "I had to raise him alone," she continues, the words slipping out with a calmness she didn't know she had. "I had to keep him away from your world of privilege, because I didn't want him to grow up thinking that was the only thing that mattered. I wanted him to know real love, real life." She holds his gaze for a long moment, letting the silence stretch. She wants him to understand. She wants him to feel the weight of his choices, the weight of what he threw away. But the truth is, Grace doesn't need him to understand anymore. She has Jalen. That's enough. You chose your legacy, Ethan. Now live with it. As she turns again, Jalen's little hand tightens in hers. He's still unsure, still trying to piece this all together in his mind. But Grace will protect him from this moment. She'll protect him from the man who didn't want him. Walking away from Ethan, from that world of privilege, is the hardest thing she's done. But it's also the most freeing. Some stories have been written for you, but the question is, do you control your own destiny? Grace's truth is not just hers, it's for anyone who's ever been left behind. Anyone who's ever had to rebuild their life from the ground up. This is her story now, and she's not going to let anyone take it from her. Will you keep watching? Grace takes another step forward, pulling Jalen along with her, but then she feels it, a hand on her arm, a strong grip that stops her cold. She jerks her head around, her heart racing, already knowing who it is. Ethan. His eyes are wide, frantic, and for a moment, he almost seems like the man she once loved. But in that instant, the man who left her behind all those years ago comes flooding back. His desperation is palpable. She feels it like a physical weight. "Grace, please," he says, his voice trembling. "You have to understand. I never knew. I didn't want this. I didn't want to hurt you." Grace's pulse pounds in her ears. Every word that falls from his mouth feels like a punch. "You didn't care, Ethan." The words are raw, spilling out before she can stop them. She takes a breath, trying to hold back the fury building inside her. "You never did. You chose your name over us, and now you're here trying to rewrite history. I gave you everything, and you walked away like it was nothing." She stands there, her chest heaving, her hand still tightly clutching Jalen's. The anger is so sharp, it feels like it could split her in two. She wants to scream at him, to tell him every hurtful word she's held back for so long, but instead, she keeps her voice steady. "You can't fix this, Ethan. You made your choice. And we're not part of it anymore." Behind her, Jalen shifts uneasily. His small hand pulls at hers, and Grace can feel his confusion. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's just a little boy, caught in the middle of the mess his father has created. Ethan steps closer, almost as if he's pleading with her to hear him, to believe that he's different, that he's changed. "Grace, I can make this right. I've built an empire, but that's not what matters now. I want you back in my life. I want to be in Jalen's life. I can set up a trust for him. Anything you need, please. Just let me make up for everything." For a split second, Grace's resolve falters. The weight of his words hangs in the air, the promise of security, of wealth, of everything she once dreamed of. She could have it all, the life she had imagined when she was young, the life she was told she deserved. But no, not like this. Her heart hardens, and the softness she briefly felt slips away. She turns to Ethan, her gaze cold, her voice sharp. "I don't need your money, Ethan. I don't need your trust. I've built my life without you, and I'll keep building it without you. Jalen and I are fine. We don't need the things you can give us." The whispers around the room grow louder, the tension escalating with every passing second. Grace feels the weight of 100 eyes on her, but she stands firm. Ethan's face falls, his desperation morphing into frustration. His shoulders slump as if the ground beneath him is giving way. He opens his mouth to speak, but Grace doesn't give him the chance. She turns back to Jalen, pulling him gently by the hand, her steps steady. She doesn't look back. Ethan's voice follows her, but it's too late. The room, once filled with the excitement of a wedding, now buzzes with the palpable tension of a story unfolding, one that no one expected to be a part of. But Grace isn't concerned with them. She's only focused on Jalen and the life they're building together, far away from the man who abandoned them both. Ethan watches them leave, but this time, she doesn't need to see his face. She knows exactly what she's walking away from and what she's walking toward. Ethan stands in the middle of the ballroom, a still figure among the shifting crowd. His eyes follow Grace and Jalen as they make their way toward the exit, his chest tight, breath shallow. He's frozen, caught in a wave of confusion, regret, and guilt that crashes over him, drowning him in the reality of what he's lost. He watches as Grace walks away, her posture straight, her steps deliberate. She doesn't look back, doesn't hesitate, and with every step she takes, something inside Ethan shatters. The walls he'd so carefully built around himself, the life he'd worked tirelessly to create, are crumbling one word at a time, one look at Grace, one flash of Jalen's innocent face. He had been so sure of his choices, his family's legacy, his future. But now, standing in the wake of Grace's departure, Ethan can feel the weight of his mistakes crushing him. He had spent so many years pretending that wealth and status were all that mattered. But the truth is, nothing matters now. Nothing except the family he could have had, the family he should have had. His eyes linger on Grace's back, and the space between them feels miles wide. He's not sure how to bridge that gap, or if it can even be bridged. The guilt gnaws at him like a constant ache, deeper than anything he's ever felt before. He thought he was making the right choice when he left her. He was just protecting his future, securing everything he'd been taught to value. But now, in the face of her strength, her unwavering resolve. He sees what he gave up, what he lost, and it hurts more than he ever imagined. The voices around him seem to blur together, a murmur of judgment and curiosity, but he can't focus on them. His mind replays every moment, every look, every word before and after the night he left. Grace had loved him. She had believed in him, and he had walked away from all of it, without a second thought. His eyes flicked to Jalen, still walking beside Grace. The boy, his son, his blood has no idea what's happening. He's too young to understand the complexities of a life defined by legacy and wealth. But Ethan knows, and that realization makes the pain even worse. Ethan's gaze hardens. He wants to call out to Grace, to apologize, to beg for her forgiveness, but he knows it's too late. He's lost his chance. He let it slip away, and now all that's left is the empty space between them, filled with mistakes he can never undo. Grace doesn't stop. She keeps walking, never once turning around, never once letting Ethan see the tears that threaten to spill. She doesn't need him anymore. She doesn't need anyone to validate her existence. She's built a life, a world, with Jalen at its center, and that's all that matters now. As the doors of the ballroom close behind them, a heavy silence fills the room, and Ethan is left standing alone, surrounded by the very success he once thought would fill him. But now, in this moment, it feels hollow, empty, like a life without meaning. Grace is walking away from a broken man, a man who chose everything over her. But would you walk away from the life you've worked so hard to build? Sometimes the hardest decisions bring us the most freedom. Do you believe in second chances, or is the past better left behind? Grace's heart aches as she walks out of the grand ballroom, her footsteps echoing in the silence that has descended around her. The lights of Georgetown twinkle through the windows, but it feels as if the world outside is miles away. She can feel the weight of the night pressing down on her, the tension of everything that's unfolded. But it's Jalen's voice, small, innocent, that cuts through the haze, making everything inside her twist. Why doesn't he want to be my daddy, Mama? The words hang in the air, sharp and fragile. Grace stops in her tracks, her throat tightening. She kneels down to his level, forcing a calm smile, but inside, she feels like she's shattering. She never wanted this for him. She never wanted Jalen to question his worth, to feel the sting of rejection from a man who should have been there for him. Ethan should have been the one to answer this question, but instead, it's Grace standing in the aftermath of a love lost, a life built in isolation, and the weight of her son's heart on her shoulders. Grace blinks, trying to hold back the tears that threaten to spill. She takes a deep breath, steadying herself. She won't let Jalen see her break. Not now. Not when he needs her most. Some people just aren't ready for love, baby, she says, her voice soft but firm. But that doesn't mean they're not worthy of it. It's not your fault. It's his. Jalen looks up at her, his big eyes filled with confusion, searching for answers that Grace doesn't have. The pain in his gaze pierces her heart. How do you explain abandonment to a child who hasn't even had the chance to understand it yet? She takes his hand, leading him outside into the cool night air, the wind brushing against their faces. We don't need him, Jalen. We have each other, and that's enough. The words feel like a promise, one she's made to him from the moment he was born. She promised she would protect him from the world, from the hurt, from the lies. She would keep him safe, and she would keep herself safe too. As they walk through the quiet streets, Grace's thoughts flash back to the days after Ethan left. She remembers holding Jalen in her arms for the first time, his tiny body pressed against hers, and the overwhelming sense of love and fear that flooded her. She was terrified, unsure of how she would raise him alone. But she did it. She built a life for him. And now, she's stronger than she's ever been. The memory of Ethan's words, his rejection, still stings. But Grace has learned to live with the pain. It's a part of who she is now, this woman who's been through hell and kept going. She no longer needs anyone to validate her. She doesn't need Ethan's approval, his wealth, his promises. She has Jalen, and that's more than enough. Grace stands tall, her back straight as she walks forward, the weight of the past finally starting to loosen. She's no longer the scared girl who lets someone else decide her worth. She is a mother. She is a fighter. She is enough. And as they walk into their future together, Grace knows one thing for certain. She will never let anyone, least of all Ethan, make her doubt that again. Ethan sits alone at the head table, the once grand banquet hall now feeling eerily quiet around him. The guests have begun to filter out, their whispers still hanging in the air. His wedding day, his perfect day, has completely unraveled. He looks at the empty chair beside him, where Samantha should be sitting, but isn't. He runs a hand through his hair, his mind replaying the evening's events. Grace's face, her eyes full of pain, will not leave him. Every word she said cuts deeper with each passing second. You walked away, Ethan. You left me. And Jalen. Those words echo in his head like a haunting refrain. He can't escape them. He can't escape her. He can't escape the reality of what he's done. Ethan's gaze shifts to the empty glass of champagne in front of him. Samantha. She was supposed to be his future, the woman who would stand by his side as he solidified his place in the world. But as he sits here, alone, the weight of his decisions presses down on him harder than he ever imagined. His life, the empire he worked so tirelessly to build, feels meaningless now. What good is it, he wonders, when it cost him everything that really mattered? He thought he had it all figured out back then. The business, the family name, the legacy, but none of it mattered. He looks back at the entrance, at the door Grace and Jalen walked through just hours ago. Jalen, his son, Ethan hadn't even known. He hadn't even known he had a child. The thought is a sharp, painful reality that pierces him. How many times had he passed up opportunities to be a father, to be there for Grace, to be there for the child he never knew existed? How could he have let all of that slip through his fingers? Ethan's mind races. The memories flood him the night he walked away from Grace, the promises he made to her that he never kept. He had been so sure back then, sure that his family's approval, his wealth, was the only thing that mattered. But now, in the stillness of his ruined wedding, he feels the crushing weight of those choices. He chose his name over love, and it's too late to undo it. A wave of guilt crashes over him. He wants to call Grace, beg her for forgiveness, somehow make things right. But doubts flood his mind. What good would it do now? He's already ruined everything. He's already lost her. Redemption is a long road, he thinks bitterly. Can anyone truly change? Ethan sits there, staring at his hands, the same hands that once promised Grace everything, but now all he can feel is regret. He's lost more than a wife, more than a wedding day. He's lost his family, his son, and for what? Do you think Ethan can find a way back? The question lingers in the air, unanswered. The damage may be too deep to fix, but still a part of him wonders if there's any hope left for him, if there's any way to undo the damage he's done. Grace stands in the doorway of Jalen's bedroom, her eyes tracing the soft rise and fall of his chest as he sleeps peacefully. The quiet hum of the night fills the space around her, but she can't shake the heaviness in her heart. The events of the day are still fresh, still raw, but looking at Jalen, his small hands curled into the blanket, his innocent face free from the world's pain, brings her some measure of peace. She exhales deeply, her fingers brushing against the doorframe. It's hard to believe how far she's come. 7 years ago, she was a different woman. A girl, really. She was filled with dreams and hope, believing in a future with Ethan. She had trusted him when he promised her the world, but all of that was shattered when he walked away. But she's not that girl anymore. Grace smiles softly as she watches Jalen sleep. She's stronger now, built from years of sacrifice and resilience. She remembers the sleepless nights, the tears she wiped away in silence, the countless times she had to swallow her own pain to give Jalen the love he deserved. Grace didn't have a choice. She couldn't afford to fall apart. She had to keep going for Jalen. He's been her reason, her motivation to get up each day. Everything she's done, every step she's taken, has been for him. She didn't need Ethan. She didn't need anyone. She was enough. The quiet is broken by the sound of a knock at the door. Her heart skips, an unexpected jolt of tension shooting through her body. She moves toward the door, her steps cautious, uncertain, but when she opens it, She sees him standing there, Ethan. His eyes are filled with regret, his posture slumped with defeat. He looks like the man she used to know, the man she thought she would grow old with. But this man, standing on her doorstep, is broken. There's no mistaking the look in his eyes. He's drowning in the guilt of his own choices. "I'm sorry, Grace," Ethan says, his voice soft, cracked. "I didn't know. I wasn't ready." The words hang in the air, but they don't reach her. Not anymore. Not after everything he put her through. Grace stands tall, her posture firm, calm, composed, unshaken. She doesn't let the pain in his eyes sway her. This is it. This is the moment where she finally gets to close the door on him, on everything he was, on everything he did to her. "You had your chance, Ethan," she replies, her voice steady, clear. "Now you've missed it." The finality of her words seems to hang between them, suspended in the cool night air. Ethan opens his mouth to say something else, but Grace doesn't let him. She's done listening to the excuses, done with the apologies that mean nothing now. This is her life, her son's life, and she's finally in control. Without another word, she steps back, the door closing softly behind her. She takes a moment to stand there, her hand on the handle, her chest filled with a quiet strength that she knows will carry her through anything. And as she turns back toward the living room, toward the small but perfect life she's built, Grace knows that she's finally free. Ethan is part of the past now, and there's no room for him in the future she's made. Grace and Jalen step outside, the cool air of the evening wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. The world seems quieter now, softer. The chaos of the wedding, the pain of confronting the past, all feels distant. Grace looks down at Jalen, his small hand gripping hers with the kind of trust only a child can offer. The streets of Georgetown are still bustling with life, but for Grace, it feels like she's walking a new path, one that's entirely her own. She's free. The weight that had been on her shoulders for so long of loving Ethan, of carrying his absence, has finally lifted. What she has now is something stronger than love. It's resilience. It's purpose. It's a future she's built for herself and Jalen, without anyone's help but her own. Grace looks down at Jalen, his wide eyes taking in the world around him. In his innocence, in the way he looks at her with absolute certainty, she finds everything she needs. Everything. There's no room for regret, no room for the ghosts of a life she thought she wanted. What they have is real. What they have is love. "We've got everything we need right here, Jalen," she says softly, her voice full of quiet strength. Jalen smiles up at her, the kind of smile that makes Grace's heart swell with pride. He doesn't need to understand everything yet. All he needs to know is that he is loved, and that his world, this world, will always be safe, always be enough. Because of her. Behind them, Ethan stands in the shadow of the building, watching them as they walk away. His face is etched with regret, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He had his chance, and he had chosen his empire over them. But now, seeing Grace and Jalen leave, he knows the truth. He can never get back what he lost. He knows the pain of his own choices will follow him forever. The family he could have had, the son he never knew, will haunt him in a way no amount of wealth or legacy ever could. Grace doesn't look back. She doesn't need to. Her future is ahead of her, with Jalen by her side. The past is a chapter that's been written, and she's closed that book. She's moving forward. As they continue walking, the city lights flicker above them. Grace feels a quiet peace settle over her, a peace she's worked hard to earn. There are still struggles ahead, but she's not afraid. She knows who she is now. She knows her worth. The future is theirs to shape, one step at a time. Ethan stands there, watching them disappear into the night, feeling the weight of what he lost. He had his chance, and now the empty space he's left behind will never be filled. Grace's story is just beginning, and it's one that she will write herself. Some stories end with unanswered questions, but Grace's story isn't over. She chose her family, her son, and sometimes that's all we really need. What would you choose? As Grace and Jalen disappear into the night, stepping boldly into their future. One thing is clear: sometimes the hardest battles we face are the ones we fight within ourselves. But in the end, it's love, resilience, and the strength to choose ourselves that carry us forward. Grace's journey is proof that no matter how deep the pain, we can rise, rebuild, and find the peace we deserve. If you've ever had to let go of a dream, or walk away from someone who didn't see your worth, Grace's story is a reminder that you are enough, just as you are. So, ask yourself, what are you willing to walk away from to build a better future? What would you choose? If this story touched you, if you felt the pain and triumph of Grace's journey, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because sometimes the most important stories are the ones we all need to hear. You never know, your story might be waiting for the courage to be written next. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.